There may be nothing more rewarding than finding that little diamond in the rough, the sleeper, and having him dominate your fantasy league. Drew Silva, let's look at the pitchers that are out there, sleeper pitchers that you have your eye on that you think could pop in 2020.
Yeah, mostly focusing on starting pitchers here. I'm going with A's left-hander Jesus Luzardo, who was a popular mid to late round sleeper pick in drafts last season, wound up missing a large majority of the year because he had a shoulder injury at spring training. But he rehabbed the injury, did not require surgery on it, and should be good to go. He made his major league debut actually last September. Pitched to a 1.50 ERA with 16 strikeouts and 12 innings down the stretch, and then had a really good showing in the wild card game, kind of as a piggyback starter through 3 scoreless innings against the Rays. The A's wound up losing that game. There is a question as to what kind of workload the A's are going to allow for him this year. He only threw 55 innings between the minors and majors in 2019, but an average draft position right around the middle of the 12th round. And I think he has the stuff to bring a strong return on investment. High 90s fastball, a 4-seamer and a 2-seamer. The 2-seamer has sinking action, like a curved ball, or it's a slider that he can throw like a curve, just really filthy stuff. Maybe the best changeup in the minors.
It's filthy.
And I just, if he can stay healthy and with that team around him and the environment there in Oakland for pitching, I think he could be a really good value.
Yeah, the crazy thing, like with him, with his fastball, if you're not looking at the miles per hour, you might think it's a changeup because there's that much movement on it. You saw what he did in that wild card game. No one else for Oakland showed up in that wild card game, but he was dominant. It was really impressive. I have the same concerns with Drew about what they're going to do with the workload type of thing. I could really see Oakland using an opener ahead of him, having him be a 2-3 inning guy. The nice thing about that is he gets a chance to qualify for wins, though. So that would be something to look into. Definitely a guy that you take a little bit of risk because of the injuries, but the reward is certainly out there.
I think with Luzardo, I mean, the A's are a team that's aiming for the postseason, certainly. So they're going to want him to get through the year.
That's a great
point. They're
point.
going to have to be creative, whether it's giving him breaks here or there around the All-Star break. So that's something you're going to have to keep in mind and tolerate.
We love the creativity of some of these teams out there, the Rays, the A's, but it does make it difficult in the fantasy world.
Especially the bullpen.
Yes. Like those defined roles, and you don't always get those with the A's or with the Rays. So if you're looking for a guy, DJ Short, on the starting pitcher sleeper radar, who's that for you?
Well, do you remember Garrett Richards? It's a
bell.
blast from the past. I'm sure you remember him best with the Angels, but he's with the Padres now. He's logged 31 starts combined dating back to the 2015 season, all sorts of injuries, Tommy John surgery. Returned with the Padres last year, made 3 starts. The results weren't great on the surface, but still threw just as hard as ever, still has that beautiful slider. So I think there's a lot to be optimistic about here going into next year or going into 2020. Richards, granted, never been a great control guy, but he's generally kept the ball on the ground really well, and he'll be pitching half of his games in San Diego, which is a beautiful place, but also a great place to pitch. So he's going to cost very little in draft day. You can get him extremely late, if not on the waiver wire, but I'd try to get a piece of him if you can.
Yeah, I like that Padres rotation if Richards can stay healthy. Chris Paddock, I think, is already an ace, and he's so young. Zach Davies was like kind of an under-the-radar pickup for them from the Brewers. Joey Lucchesi, a young guy, too, who can miss bats.
Mackenzie Gore on the way.
Mackenzie Gore on the way.
Yeah, Chris, there's a lot to like with this Padres starting staff.
Yeah, I'm trying to tee
There
you
is, yeah. And in fact, I'm going to talk about another one in Dinelson Lamet. This is a guy who missed all of 2018 with Tommy John surgery, and then when he came back, he wasn't so great. He had a 5.27 ERA, but from August 6th on, he struck out 75 hitters over 50 innings, and he allowed a 214 average against. I mean, you talk about filthy sliders. I mean, that is aesthetically pleasing, as I like to say when I get the chance to watch him pitch. My concern is he's not going to ever be a guy who piles up the innings because he has some command issues, and because he has had injury issues even as a minor leaguer. You just never. But you know what? We're not seeing a lot of those guys who are innings eaters anymore. So the 150 innings that I think he might be able to give you this year, I think he's going to be able to give you quality innings, and that's what I'm really looking for. If he's available in those mid-rounds, I'm definitely targeting him.
One tidbit on Lamet. Among pitchers with at least 70 innings pitched last year, only Mike Clevenger, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Chris Sale, and Garrett Cole had a higher strikeout percentage.
I've heard of those guys.
So you should meet Lamet.
And that's not at full strength coming back from Tommy John, you know.
Yes.
And you look at the underlying skills. You ever go to Baseball Savant and look at the StatCast numbers for him, his velocity, his fastball spin, his hard contact rate, everything that you want for a pitcher is good for Lamet there. So let me throw out a couple other names here and see if they excite you guys. And it's always where they're being drafted and is it good, proper value.
Absolutely.
But bounce back candidate like Matt Boyd from the Tigers or Desclafani from the Reds or Sean Manaea even for a team in Oakland.
So, I mean, you look at Boyd, you look at the peripherals last year, they were fantastic. Strikeout to walk ratio. Just had so many problems with the home run ball,
Sure.
Which elevated the ERA. So, again, we don't know what the baseball is going to be like this year. That's such an X factor, and it's hard to really
Should
project
just put that on a little
I think they should have like a draft lottery type thing where they have a ranking of how juiced the ball will be that year. We do it at the beginning of the year, and then we know.
I'm with
But
it.
if you can get Boyd late enough, I think that's a fine gamble on the chance
absolutely.
that maybe the baseball isn't as
And he's going to get traded.
That's
to
a great
contender
point.
That's a
Yeah.
good
at
point.
some point.
So
this
the wins
summer.
will be there. The offense is going to be terrible for the Tigers, so you have to keep that in mind. Wins might not be there initially.
Yeah, he's going to get traded though. I mean, I have a good feeling about that.
Sure.
Maybe the Dodgers at some point.
Right.
They have some questionable durability in their rotation.
Oh, but they gave up so many prospects for Mookie Betts. How are they going to be able to do that? Manaea is the first name that stood out to me. Absolutely. I think he looked pretty darn solid when he came back from that shoulder injury. Another guy that's had injury problems actually since when he was at Indiana State. But the stuff is filthy, and I think he's playing for an Oakland team that's going to win a lot of baseball games, so I think that'll be there. I do wonder if they'll maybe get a little creative with him as well, maybe a few missed starts, but you can deal with that. If it's not like a position player where you have to be wondering if he's going to be on the injured list, but I really think that he has a chance to be in that top 30, 35 starter range, and he isn't going in that range right now in drafts, so that's certainly a guy that I'd be looking to target.
You want to find a game-changing hitter. You don't want to spend a whole lot for him. So let's look at some sleeper hitters that are out there. Chris Crawford, and when you preview the landscape of all the hitters out there that are being drafted later on in drafts, who are you looking at?
I love Will Smith, to clarify, the catcher for the Dodgers. I like the reliever as well, and I like the actor quite a bit too. Some of this has to do with the positional value. The fact that if I could play in a no-catcher league, I probably would do it just because I hate having to wait to last. But the guy I'm targeting in drafts is Will Smith. I think he was an undervalued prospect, certainly not by the Dodgers. They took him with, I believe, the 32nd pick out of Louisville. More than held his own, had an OPS above 900, and not a small sample size as well. I think the power might not be as high as it was next year because he's more of a guy that I think is more conducive to hitting doubles, and I think the average will go up with it though. But I think that's a guy who can post that 850, 875 OPS type of thing, provide 20, 25 homers. He's also a guy who provides some speed. He didn't get a chance to run much for the Dodgers. Part of that is because the Dodgers don't run all that much. But I think he is a guy who could give you that 5 to 10 steals in the catcher position. That's extremely valuable.
Are you worried, though, he's getting a little too much recognition that he may venture out of that sleeper category?
So that would be the thing. If he's in that 4 to 5 catcher range, I wouldn't put him quite there yet. But if for that 6 to 10 area, that next tier, I really would be the type of guy that I would target.
As far as the power with Smith last year, he actually had the same home run to at bat ratio as Pete Alonso.
Wow.
So just keep that in mind.
Sure, smaller samples.
Yeah,
Yes.
small sample to be sure. Is, this is by 175 plate appearance minimum. But so
you keep saying this stuff, he won't be a sleeper.
But what I'm saying is, don't go in thinking he's going to, hit 40 homers. I don't think that's going to happen.
He also might start hitting near the bottom of that lineup. I mean, it's so loaded. Mookie Betts, Max Muncy, Justin Turner, Cody Bellinger, Jock Peterson is still there. We'll see if he's still there come opening day. Corey Seager, Gavin Lux.
Right. They are deep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're deep.
and I think that gives him a chance to score more runs as well than your typical bottom of the order guy. So that's a good point.
Under the radar, DJ.
Yeah, I mean, the Marlins. I mean, who's paying attention to the Marlins? And their offense.
Even people in Miami. Hardly.
That's a good point. Their offense was terrible last year, so you might have missed it. Brian Anderson had a pretty good year.
Yeah.
Had a solid first season in the majors, but had 20 homers last year, 811 OPS in just 126 games. Really solid approach at the plate. Has a 349 on-base percentage through 307 major league games so far. And I tend to believe in what we saw on the power front last year. Increased the fly ball rate, went from 28.5% to 35.3%. Continues to hit the ball hard. According to Baseball Savant, he was ranked in the 86th percentile in the majors in hard hit percentage.
Impressive.
And again, only played 126 games. So, if you project this out, something closer to at 162, the Marlins offense this year is actually, I think, going to be a little bit better.
Sure.
It can only get better, but they've added some pieces. I think it's going to be pretty good. So maybe 25 homers, increasing counting stats, has eligibility between third base and the outfield as well. So that's big. I think it could be a nice late round value.
They're altering the fences again in
Yes,
Miami,
that's
too. I
right.
saw they
Good point.
just started that project last week. You'd think they would have started
people.
that. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to go with Sam Hilliard of the Rockies, who a lot of people might not really know of if you're a casual fantasy baseball player. But if you want to get in on that Coors Field effect, which every fantasy owner does, but you don't want to pay up for Nolan Arenado or Trevor Story or Charlie Blackmon or David Dahl, Sam Hilliard, he's right there. He's going 255th overall in the average Yahoo League, which is kind of off the board in a standard draft. You can get him in the very last round, maybe even a waiver wire guy. Tremendous power and speed totals in the minor leagues and in the majors. 35 home runs, 101 RBIs, 22 steals in 126 games last year at AAA Albuquerque, which is at elevation, but so is Denver, where he's going to be playing his home games. Made his MLB debut last August 27th and had 7 homers and 2 stolen bases in 27 games, plus an OPS over 1,000. You look at all those numbers, you look at where he's being drafted. Does he necessarily have an everyday role locked in? I don't know. They have Ian Desmond in the outfield. Garrett Hampson might play some
The Rockies
outfield.
have done, the last couple years has been hard to pin down.
Yeah, Raimel Tapia comes in and out. But I think, you look what he's done the last few years in the upper minors and then what he did in the majors down the stretch last year. I think he has a good a shot as any to lock in that left field job.
Well, you had me at Coors Field.
Yeah, right? And 255th overall.
Yeah.
DJ at Coors Field. No, I'm drafted.
Like maybe he's not really that good, but you're not risking that much.
Yeah,
to find
that
out.
late. That's
Is
for
he
sure.
being drafted, or is it end of draft?
255th overall. So most drafts go to 230. A 12-teamer, right? Is that good
Standard
math?
league, yeah.
Okay, let me throw a few other names out here at you. See if they're on your sleeper radar. Kyle Tucker. He might be a little too popular, but we haven't quite seen it yet. Austin Hayes for the Orioles. Austin Riley popped a little bit last year for the Braves. Any other names out there that you seem to be getting on some of your lists and your teams more than most?
I think the Hayes pick is an interesting one. This was a consensus top 100 prospect. Looked like maybe even a top 50 guy for a little bit. He's definitely going to get an opportunity playing for the AAA Orioles this year. I'm sorry, that was me.
Yeah.
But he is a guy with talent. The numbers haven't really popped at the minor league level since he got promoted way too early, unfortunately. And I think that did hurt his development a little bit. But he could be a guy, a late bloomer type that sometimes it just takes time with these prospects to make the adjustment. So I think Hayes is actually a pretty solid late round flyer, especially if you're playing in a deeper format. I
really like Franmil Reyes of the Indians. Just incredible raw power. The guy's built like a middle linebacker.
Yeah.
And I like I said, I think the top of the Indians lineup is really good. I can't speak for the entire team. I don't really know what the front office strategy is there in Cleveland.
Yeah,
but
that's what people in Cleveland are saying. Indians fans have said that many times.
But hitting behind Lindor and Jose Ramirez and Carlos Santana, Reyes should have a lot of RBI opportunities, and he has 40 homer upside, I think, 35, 40 homer upside.
I'd say Willie Calhoun with the Rangers.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
We don't know how their new ballpark's going to play yet, so that's an important factor, but finally locked into an everyday role there, which we've been waiting for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think the lineup's a little underrated too. And so I'm excited to see what he can do with the full season.
Get one of those guys on your roster, maybe a couple, and you could be in pretty good shape in 2020. You're always in good shape if you order the draft guide. You can do that right now. Rotoworld.com/MLB draft guide.